The first time Dante Moretti saw her again, it was through bulletproof glass and a wall of men who would die for him. A boardroom high above Manhattan, all steel and stormlight. The kind of room where billion-dollar deals were signed with smiles that meant nothing and threats that meant everything. 12 executives sat around a table polished like a black mirror. Lawyers, advisors, his consigliere at his right hand, still as a statue. 2 security men at the door, eyes like gun barrels, and at the far end, the elevator chimed. Dante didn't look up at first. He didn't have to. Power taught you what belonged to you before your eyes confirmed it. The air shifted. The room tightened. Someone's breathing changed. Then heels clicked, low, deliberate, like a countdown. Dante lifted his gaze, and there she was. Not the girl he had thrown out of his world, barefoot and shaking under a winter sky. Not the wife he had exiled with a single sentence, as if she were nothing more than a stain he could wipe from his name. This woman walked like she owned the oxygen. Black hair pinned in a severe twist, jaw set, eyes calm in a way that was almost cruel. A tailored charcoal suit hugged her frame like armor. No jewelry except a thin gold band on her right hand, worn, not decorative. Her mouth was neutral, but the tension in it told a story that didn't need words. She paused at the threshold, as if she was stepping over a grave, and then, without permission, she stepped in. Dante felt something inside him shift, something old, something buried under years of blood and deals and sleepless nights. A memory, sharp as a blade, her hands pressed against her stomach, her voice cracking as she begged him to listen. I didn't cheat on you. And his own voice, colder than any gun he'd ever held. The DNA test says the child isn't mine. He had watched her face collapse that day, not into tears, into something worse, into a kind of quiet that looked like a soul leaving a body. He had thought that quiet would haunt her. He hadn't expected it to haunt him now. She stood at the end of his table, the same shape of her mouth, the same tilt of her chin, but her eyes were no longer the soft brown he remembered. They were still brown, yes, but hardened, sharpened by survival, and lit with a controlled fury that made even his men uneasy. Someone cleared their throat. Mr. Moretti, this is— I know who she is, Dante said. The room froze. The woman's gaze met his, and for a heartbeat Dante forgot the boardroom, forgot Manhattan, forgot the empire he had built from the ashes of old Sicily and newer wars. He saw snow again, saw her shivering, saw the streetlight catching the tears she refused to let fall. He had told himself he did it because he was protecting his name. He had never admitted. It was also because he was afraid that he had been a fool, afraid that he had loved her too much, and love made men weak. Now she stood in his kingdom, 5 years later, and the only weakness in the room was the sudden tightness in his chest. Her voice was smooth, professional, too smooth, like a weapon with a velvet grip. Mr. Moretti, she said, thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Dante's fingers curled around the edge of the table. I didn't agree, he said. My lawyers did. One of the executives shifted uncomfortably. A lawyer opened a folder. Papers rustled like nervous wings. She didn't blink. Then perhaps, she said, you should fire them, because they've been negotiating against you. A ripple passed through the room. Shock, curiosity, fear. Dante's consigliere, Marco, leaned slightly toward him. Boss, he murmured, voice low. She's here representing Lasca Biotech. Dante kept his eyes on her. I'm buying Lasca, he said. They don't need representation. They need a signature. Her lips curved, not a smile. A warning. You don't buy a company that holds patents worth billions without someone making sure you don't. Bury the people who created them. Dante's gaze narrowed. You came to protect scientists, he asked. I came, she said, to protect what's mine. The words landed like a match in gasoline. Dante felt the room tilt. The past surged forward so fast he tasted it, iron and regret. What exactly do you think is yours? He asked softly. She placed a leather portfolio on the table, slid it forward. Her fingers were steady, not trembling, not pleading. Your acquisition depends on federal compliance reports, she said. Reports Lasca filed under oath. Dante's eyes flicked to the portfolio. He didn't touch it, she continued, voice calm, but every syllable carried a private edge meant only for him. Those reports contain documentation of financial irregularities, shell transfers, entities that resemble structures used by— She paused, like she was choosing how to say the word without detonating the room. Certain organizations. Dante felt Marco tense beside him. She looked Dante directly in the eye. If you want this deal, she said, you will negotiate with me. Silence. The kind of silence that happens when a predator realizes something in the room isn't prey. Dante's gaze dropped. just for a fraction, to her hand. That thin gold band, not on the left hand, not a wedding ring, something else, a promise, a reminder, a chain. He looked back up. What is your name now? He asked. She didn't hesitate. Elena Riva. Riva, not Rossi, not Moretti, not the name he had once pressed to her lips at night. Like a prayer, Elena's expression didn't change. But Dante saw the faint tightening at the corner of her eye, the only crack in her armor, like his question had scraped something raw. He leaned back in his chair, forcing himself to breathe evenly. You're very brave, he said. Walking into my building with threats. Elena's voice lowered slightly. You mistake me, she said. I didn't walk in here to threaten you. Her eyes held his. I walked in here, she said, because you can't hurt me anymore. Dante felt his heart hit his ribs like a fist. He almost smiled, because that was a lie, and they both knew it. He could hurt anyone. But the part that mattered, the part of him that had once been human, realized something with a cold clarity. She wasn't afraid of him anymore, and that terrified him more than any rival ever had. He gestured lazily. Everyone out, he said. The executives blinked. Mr. Moretti out. Marco's gaze flicked to Dante, questioning. Dante didn't look away from Elena now. Chairs scraped. Papers gathered. People stood too quickly, eager to obey. In under a minute, the room emptied, except Dante, Marco, and the two guards at the door. Dante lifted a finger. The guards stepped out and shut the door behind them. The click of the lock sounded final. Marco remained, as he always did, loyal as a shadow. Elena didn't flinch at the shift. If anything, she seemed calmer. Dante folded his hands. Tell me, he said softly, why you're really here. Elena's gaze moved briefly to Marco. Is he staying? She asked. Marco's face was blank. Dante's voice was even. He stays. Elena nodded once, accepting it. Then I'll be clear, she said. The deal is leverage. I don't care about your money. Dante's jaw tightened. Then what do you care about? Elena's fingers slid into her portfolio. She pulled out a single sheet of paper, held it between two fingers like it disgusted her. A photograph. Dante's eyes focused, and something in him went still. A little boy. Dark hair. Strong brows. A small face caught mid-laugh. Cheeks rounded with childhood softness. His eyes were brown, but the shape, the slight downward tilt at the outer corners. Dante felt his lungs forget how to work. The boy's eyes were his. Marco's breath caught, barely audible. Elena set the photo on the table. Dante stared at it as if it might bleed. How old? He forced out. Elena watched him, her face unreadable. 5, she said. The number hit him like a gunshot. 5 years since. He had thrown her out. 5 years since he had told himself the child wasn't his. His throat tightened, and for a moment the room felt too small to contain what surged up inside him: rage, grief, disbelief. Something like hope that made him want to tear his own chest open. You're lying, Dante said, but his voice wasn't sure. Elena's gaze didn't waver. His name is Luca, she said. He's allergic to strawberries. He hates loud noises. He sleeps with a nightlight because he's afraid of the dark. Her voice softened for the first time, and the softness cut deeper than anger ever could. He asks about you. Dante's vision blurred for a fraction, like his body was rejecting reality. No, he said. No, he doesn't. Elena's mouth tightened. Not anymore, she said. Not after the first year. After that, he stopped asking. Children learn quickly when someone doesn't want them. Dante's hands flexed. He wanted to stand. He wanted to break the table. He wanted to rewind time until his own arrogance bled out of him. But a darker thought rose. Cold and surgical. He looked at Elena. The DNA test, he said. You remember it? Elena's eyes flashed. How could I forget? She whispered. Dante's voice dropped. So you're telling me the test was wrong? Elena's gaze sharpened. I'm telling you, you believed it, she said. That's what mattered. Dante flinched as if she'd slapped him. Marco's voice was cautious. If the boy is Elena Riva, she corrected automatically, but there was a tremor under the professionalism, like the old name still lived under her skin and hurt when touched. Dante leaned forward, eyes on the photo. Why show me this? He asked, voice rough. Why come back now? Elena's fingers tapped the table once measured, controlled. Because, she said, you've been expanding. Dante's eyes lifted to hers. You've been buying companies, she continued. Legitimate ones. Building a public face. You're trying to become untouchable. Dante said nothing. It wasn't denial if it was true. Elena's voice hardened. And in doing that, she said, you've stepped into a space where law matters, where records matter, where paperwork becomes a weapon. She leaned forward just slightly, and for the first time Dante saw something beneath her, held in a tight fist. Someone found me, she said. The words were quiet, but they changed the temperature of the room. Dante's entire body went still. Who? Elena's throat worked. A man from your world, she said. Not yours, but adjacent. Someone who remembers me. Marco's eyes narrowed. Name, he demanded. Elena shook her head once. Not yet, she said, because I don't know if you're the danger or the protection. Dante's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. Elena continued, voice low. I built a life, she said. I disappeared. I changed my name. I worked. I survived. I raised my son, she swallowed. And then someone sent me a message. Dante's eyes burned. What message? Elena's gaze held his, and the next words came out like they were carved from stone. He said, tell Moretti his son has his eyes. The air went heavy. Dante felt the room darken around him. That wasn't a random threat. That was someone who knew the truth, or someone who wanted him to think they did. Elena's voice was steady, but her fingers had curled against the portfolio like she was holding herself together. I'm here, she said, because Luca is in danger, and whether you like it or not, your enemies are my enemies now. Dante's voice was almost a whisper. You should have come to me sooner. Elena's expression cracked not into tears, but into a flash of something wild and wounded. I came to you, she said. I came to you with my body breaking and my heart in my hands, and you looked at me like I was filth. Her voice lowered, trembling with controlled rage. You exiled me, Dante. You didn't just leave me. You banished me like I was nothing. Dante's name on her tongue was not affectionate. It was a blade. Dante's throat tightened. He forced himself to speak, to stay in control. If the child is mine, he said, then the test was falsified. Elena's eyes flashed. Congratulations, she said. You've reached the conclusion I reached 5 years ago. Marco's voice was grim. Who ran the test? Dante answered automatically. Dr. Valenti. Elena's lips pressed together. Your family doctor, she murmured. Of course. Dante felt an old memory surface. His mother's calm voice, his uncle's hand on his shoulder, everyone telling him to be rational, to be cold, to be strong, and Elena standing alone in that marble hallway, the paper shaking in her hands, begging him to listen. He had chosen paper over the woman who had bled in his bed. Dante's hands curled into fists under the table. Where is Valenti now? He asked Marco. Marco's face tightened. Dead, he said. 2 years ago. Heart attack. Dante stared at Elena, and she stared back, as if she had expected that. Of course he was dead. Loose ends always were. Elena's voice was quiet but sharp. So you can't ask him why, she said. You can't ask him who paid him. Dante's eyes narrowed. But I can ask the people who controlled him. Elena's gaze held his. Your mother, she said softly. The question wasn't innocent, it was aimed. Dante's chest tightened. Don't, he warned. Elena didn't flinch. Or your uncle, she continued, voice like ice. The one who's always wanted your throne. Marco's eyes flicked to Dante. There were things Marco knew, and things he didn't say in rooms with glass walls. Dante leaned back, forcing himself to breathe. Elena watched him, and in her gaze was the strangest thing, pity. Not for herself. For him. You still don't know who you're surrounded by, she said quietly. Dante's voice turned lethal. I know exactly who I'm surrounded by. Elena's eyes softened with something bitter. That's what you thought, she said, when you thought I betrayed you. Silence. A long, brutal silence. Dante stared at the boy's photograph until the edges of it blurred. A son he had rejected. A son who had learned not to ask for him. Dante's voice was rough. Where is he asked. Elena hesitated for the first time. Safe, she said. As safe as I can make him. Dante's gaze snapped to hers. That's not an answer. Elena's jaw tightened. You don't get to demand details, she said. Not after what you did. Dante leaned forward, eyes dark. You came into my boardroom, he said softly. You put my blood on my table. You don't get to keep him from me. Elena's breath caught. Your blood, she repeated, and her voice trembled just slightly. You can't even say it without sounding like you own him. Dante's eyes burned. Because I do, he said. Elena's gaze flared. No, she said. You don't own him. You forfeited him. Dante felt something snap inside him. Anger, grief, love, all tangled in a violent knot. Marco cleared his throat quietly. Boss, he said. We should verify. Discreetly. Another test. Elena's eyes flashed. No, she said instantly. You're not taking Luca from me to poke him like an experiment. Dante's voice was cold. Then you shouldn't have shown me his face. Elena's eyes glistened, but no tears fell. I showed you, she whispered, because I needed you to understand what's coming. Dante watched her, and for a moment he saw the old Eleni vulnerable and fierce, standing in the storm. What's coming? He demanded. Elena swallowed. War, she said. The word sat in the room like smoke. Elena continued, voice tight. Someone is moving pieces, she said. Someone who knows your pressure points. And mine. Dante's gaze narrowed. You're my pressure point now, he asked, almost mocking. Elena's voice was steady. No, she said. Luca is. Dante's stomach dropped. Elena leaned forward. They don't want me, she said. They want what I can do to you. What I can make you do. Dante's voice was barely audible. Who Elena's eyes held his, and in that gaze was a fear she couldn't hide. I don't know yet, she admitted, but I know this. They're watching. They know I'm here. Dante's gaze flicked to the glass walls, to the city beyond, to the millions of windows where someone could be looking in. His phone buzzed. Softly. Dante didn't move. Marco's phone buzzed to. Then Elena's 3 vibrations. Like a synchronized heartbeat, Elena's face went pale. Dante's voice turned deadly calm. Check, he said. Marco pulled out his phone first. His eyes scanned the screen, and his expression changed tight, darkening. Elena's hand trembled as she looked at her own phone. Dante's phone buzzed again. He finally picked it up. A message from an unknown number. One line. Enjoy the reunion. Moretti. Dante felt his blood go cold. Marco looked up. Boss, he said quietly. There's a car accident reported on the West Side Highway. A black SUV. Plate. Elena's breath hitched, sharp and panicked. That's my driver, she whispered. Dante's eyes snapped to her. Your son is in that car, he demanded. Elena's face drained. No, she said quickly. No, Luca isn't with me. He's with my friend. He's not in Manhattan. But fear had already cracked her control. Dante stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. Where is he? He demanded. Elena's eyes flashed with panic and defiance. I'm not telling you, she said. Not if you'll use him. Dante slammed his palm on the table, a sound like a gunshot. Elena flinched. Dante's voice was low and brutal. I will not use him, he snarled. I will protect him. Elena's eyes searched his, desperate for truth. And Dante realized something with a sick twist. She didn't trust him to love, but she trusted him to kill, because she knew that was the language he understood. Dante grabbed his coat. Marco, he said, lock down the building. Trace the number. Find the cameras. Marco nodded, already moving. Dante looked at Elena. You're coming with me, he said. Elena's jaw tightened. I'm not your prisoner. Dante stepped closer, and his presence filled the space like a storm. You walked back into my world, he said softly. You don't get to decide when you leave it. Elena's eyes flashed with hatred, then something else. Something older, something that almost broke through her. Armor. Pain. Love. The kind of love that had been crushed and buried and somehow survived. Dante's voice dropped to a whisper meant only for her. Tell me where Luca is, he said, and I swear on my life, no one touches him. Elena's lips parted as if she might speak. Then she swallowed and looked away, and Dante felt the familiar humiliation of being shut out of her truth. He's in Brooklyn, she said finally, with Sophia in an apartment under a different name. Dante's eyes narrowed. Address. Elena shook her head. No, she said, not until I know you're not the threat. Dante's jaw tightened. You think I would hurt my own child? Elena's eyes snapped back to his, blazing. You already did, she whispered. The words were quiet, but they tore through him. Dante stared at her, and the room seemed to spin with everything he couldn't undo. Then, without warning, Elena's composure cracked completely. Her shoulders trembled. Her breath hitched. Her eyes shone, and she pressed her fingers hard against the table as if she could hold herself upright through sheer will. I watched him take his first steps alone, she whispered. I held him when he cried for a father he didn't understand. I worked 3 jobs, Dante. I ate ramen so he could have fruit. I smiled so he wouldn't see me breaking. Her voice broke on the last word, and every night she whispered, I remembered your face when you looked at me and decided I was nothing. Dante felt his throat close. He had killed men without shaking. He had ordered deaths with calm precision. But Elena's pain, this pain made him feel like a man being slowly carved open. He stepped closer, instinctively reaching out. Elena flinched, back as if his touch would burn. Dante stopped, hand hovering in the air like an apology he didn't know how to give. I didn't know, he said hoarsely. Elena laughed once, bitter. You didn't want to know, she said. Dante's eyes burned. I made a mistake, he said. Elena's gaze was ruthless. A mistake is spilling wine, she whispered. You ruined lives. Silence again. And then, distant but sharp, sound of something else. A muffled thud against the glass wall. Marco's voice crackled through the intercom. "Boss," he said. "Roof access alert. Someone tripped the sensor." Dante's gaze snapped upward. Elena's breath caught. For a moment, they both stood in the boardroom like ghosts, staring at each other, knowing something was about to happen. And then the lights flickered once, twice, and went out. Darkness swallowed the room, sudden and complete. The city's glow reduced to faint outlines through the glass. Elena gasped. Dante moved instantly, stepping between her and the door, body a shield by instinct. In the dark, a sound cut through metal scraping metal, a lock being tampered with. Elena's breathing turned shallow. Dante's voice was low, controlled. "Stay behind me," he murmured. Elena's voice trembled with fury. "Don't tell me what to do," she hissed. But she didn't move away. The door handle turned slowly. Dante drew his gun, the motion silent, practiced. The lock clicked. Door opened, and a voice spoke from the hallway, amused and familiar. "Dante," it said, always dramatic. The lights snapped back on. Standing in the doorway was a man in an expensive suit, smiling like he belonged there. Silver hair, cold eyes, a face that looked like Dante's older, sharper, Uncle Salvatore Moretti. Behind him, two men with blank expressions and hands hidden in their coats. Salvatore's gaze flicked to Elena, and his smile widened. "Well," he said softly, "look what the past dragged in." Dante felt rage surge. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. Salvatore strolled in as if this were his home. "I could ask you the same," he said. "Letting strangers into our building. Letting women," his eyes lingered on Elena, "into our business." Elena's face went icy. "I'm not a stranger," she said quietly. Salvatore's smile sharpened. "No," he agreed. "You're a mistake." Dante's gun lifted slightly. "Leave," he warned. Salvatore raised his hands mockingly. "Easy," he said. "I'm family." Dante's voice was lethal. "Family doesn't cut my power." Salvatore's eyes glittered. "Family does whatever it must," he said. Then, "Look that. Elena, tell me, querida, did you enjoy your little exile?" Elena's jaw clenched. "You," she whispered. Salvatore's smile widened. "Ah," he said softly. "She recognizes me." Dante's blood turned to ice. Elena's gaze locked on Salvatore, hatred pure and sharp. "You were there," she said. "That night, when..." The test Salvatore's expression didn't change, but his eyes held a hint of satisfaction. Dante's voice was a growl. "What did you do?" Salvatore sighed theatrically. "Dante," he said, "don't look at me like that. You made your own decisions." Elena's voice shook. "You told him," she said, voice rising. "You told him I was unfaithful. You told him the baby wasn't his." Salvatore tilted his head. "I told him to protect the family," he said calmly. "A weak woman would have ruined you." Dante's gun aimed directly at Salvatore now. Marco's voice came through the intercom again. "Since, boss, we have multiple intruders on the roof. Security is engaged." Salvatore's gaze flicked upward unbothered. "This building is too tall," he said lightly. "Too many places to hide." He looked at Dante. "You're building an empire of glass," he said. "And glass breaks." Dante's voice was ice. "Why are you here?" Salvatore's smile faded slightly. "Because," he said softly, "you have been playing king without remembering how kings are made." His gaze slid to Elena again. "And because the woman you discarded has come back holding leverage." He leaned in slightly, voice low and intimate. "Did she show you the boy?" he asked Dante. Dante's grip tightened. Salvatore's eyes glittered with cruel amusement. "Of course she did," he murmured. "A chop, such a convenient weapon." Elena's voice was sharp. "He's not a weapon," she snapped. Salvatore's gaze flicked to her like she was an insect. "Everything is a weapon," he said, "especially love." Dante's jaw tightened at the word love. Because Salvatore said it like it was disgusting, Don Salvatore took a slow step closer. "You should have killed her when you sent her away," he said casually. "It would have been cleaner." Elena's breath caught. Dante's voice was a low snarl. "Say that again." Salvatore shrugged. "I'm only stating facts," he said. "Now she comes back with the child, and suddenly you're sentimental." His eyes gleamed. "That could get you killed." Dante's voice dropped. "Get out," he said. Salvatore smiled again. "No," he said gently. I think I'll stay. He turned to Alina and his voice softened into something almost convincing. Alina, he said. You don't want to be here. You don't want to be near him. Elena's gaze remained hard. I didn't come here for him, she lied. Salvatore's smile sharpened. Of course you did, he said. Everyone comes back for what they lost. His eyes flicked to Dante and you, he said softly. You lost control. Dante felt the trap closing, invisible but real. Marco's voice came through again, urgent. Boss gunshots on the roof. The sound echoed faintly through the building. Elena's face went pale. Salvatore sighed. Such chaos, he said. It would be a shame if, in all this confusion, something happened to your reunion. Asterisk. Dante's eyes narrowed. Is that a threat? Salvatore's smile was cold. It's a reminder, he said. Then Salvatore's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then looked up with satisfaction. Perfect timing, he murmured. Dante's phone buzzed again. Elena's buzzed again. 3 vibrations again. Dante's stomach twisted as he read the new message. A photo, a small boy, sitting on a couch, holding a toy car. Luca. A hand in the frame, an adult's hand resting on the boy's shoulder. Possessive. And beneath the photo, one line. Choose Dante. Elena made. Sound that wasn't quite a sob. No, she whispered. No, she lunged toward Dante's phone, eyes wide with terror. Dante instinctively shifted it away, but not fast enough to hide it. She saw the image, her knees almost buckled. Dante grabbed her elbow to steady her, and she didn't flinch this time. She clung to his sleeve like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Salvatore watched, amused. Ah, he said softly. There it is. He spread his hands. Family, he said to Dante. Or weakness. Dante's voice turned into something darker than rage. You touched my son, he said, and the words sounded like a death sentence. Salvatore's smile was calm. I didn't, he said. Not personally. He leaned in, voice low. But someone did, he said. Someone who wants you bleeding. Elena's voice was shaking, frantic. We have to go, she whispered. We have to get him. Dante's jaw clenched. Where is Sophia? He demanded. Asterisk. Elena's eyes were wild. I don't know, she whispered. She was supposed to be safe. She was supposed to. Her voice broke. Dante felt her fear, like electricity against his skin. This wasn't a negotiation now. This was primal. Dante lifted his gun again, aimed at Salvatore. Get out of my building, he said quietly, before I forget your blood. Salvatore's smile didn't change. You won't shoot me, he said. Not in front of her, not in front of your, conscience. Dante's finger tightened on the trigger. For a split second, Elena's hand touched his wrist, light, instinctive, not to stop him. To anchor herself, Salvatore saw the touch and smiled wider. See, he murmured. Weakness. Dante's eyes burned. Marco, he said, without looking away from Salvatore. Get the car ready. We're going to Brooklyn. Marco nodded, already moving. Salvatore's gaze flicked to Alina, almost affectionate. Enjoy the chase, he said softly. It's been so long since we had something worth losing. Then he turned and walked out, his men following like ghosts. The door shut. The lock clicked. Elena's body shook, and Dante realized she was trying not to collapse. Dante stepped closer, voice low. Look at me, he said. Elena's eyes snapped to his, glassy with terror. Dante's voice was steady, deadly. I will get him back, he said. I will burn this city down if I have to. Elena swallowed, and for the first time in 5 years, Dante saw her surrender something, not her pride, her trust, just a fraction. Bring him home, she whispered. Dante's chest tightened at the word home. Because he wasn't sure he deserved one anymore. They moved fast. Private corridor, armored car, waiting below. Marco drove like he was outrunning hell itself. The city blurred past neon and rain and sirens, the heartbeat of New York pounding against bulletproof windows. Alina sat rigid beside Dante in the back seat, hands clenched so tightly her knuckles were white. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She stared straight ahead like if she blinked she'd lose. Luca forever. Dante watched her profile in the dim light, how her jaw trembled once, how she swallowed hard, how her breath caught when the car hit a bump. He remembered her pregnant belly, the way she had held it as if she could protect life with her hands. Alone, he had not protected her, he had punished her, and now someone else was punishing him through her. Dante's phone buzzed again. Another message, a location pin. Brooklyn. An address. And beneath it, a final line, come alone. Dante laughed once. Humorless, Elena's gaze snapped to him. What is it? She demanded. Dante showed her the screen. She went pale. That's my building, she whispered. That's where her voice died. Dante's eyes narrowed. They want us there, he said. Elena's breathing turned shallow. They'll kill him, she whispered. Dante's voice was iron. Not if I get there first. Marco's hands tightened on the wheel. Boss, he said, it's a trap. Dante's gaze was cold. Everything is a trap, he said. The question is who bleeds. Elena's voice broke. Please, she whispered, and the word was Ronathan, like the controlled lawyer in the boardroom. Please don't do something reckless. Luca needs. Her voice caught, and Dante realized she almost said needs you. She stopped herself, because admitting that would feel like betrayal of her own pain. Dante's voice softened, just slightly. He needs me alive, he said, so I'll be alive. But in his chest, something twisted because he wasn't sure if alive meant breathing, or if alive meant redeemed. The car turned onto a narrow street lined with brick buildings and dim streetlights. The rain had turned to mist. The neighborhood felt quiet in the way quiet neighborhoods always did, like they were holding their breath for violence. Marco slowed near the address. Dante's gaze locked on the building. An ordinary place. Too ordinary. Elena's hands trembled, opened the door before the car fully stopped. He stepped out into the cold air, his suit jacket snapping in the wind like a flag. Elena followed, her heels clicking against wet pavement. She didn't care about slipping. She didn't care about looking composed. Her eyes were fixed on the building like it was a burning house with her child inside. Marco moved around them, speaking quietly into his earpiece, calling in men, placing them in shadows. Dante raised a hand. No sirens, he murmured. No lights. Marco nodded. Understood. Elena grabbed Dante's sleeve. Her fingers were ice. He's in there, she whispered. I can feel it. Dante's jaw clenched. He felt it too, on instinct, a pull, a blood-deep certainty. They approached the entrance. The door was slightly open. Dante pushed it wider, gun drawn. Inside, the stairwell smelled like old paint and damp concrete. Silence pressed in from all sides. Elena's breath was ragged. Luca, she whispered, voice barely audible. Don't know answer. They climbed. 1 flight. 2. Dante's senses sharpened. Every muscle ready. 3rd floor. Apartment door. Elena's door ajar. Dante stepped in first. Gun scanning corners. The living room was dim. A lamp lay smashed on the floor. A couch cushion ripped open like someone had searched for hidden things. A child's toy car lay overturned, one wheel still spinning slightly. Elena rushed past Dante, dropping to her knees, grabbing the toy as if it could speak. No, she whispered. No. Dante's chest tightened. He moved deeper into the apartment. The kitchen was wrecked. A chair lay tipped over. Then he saw it on the table. A small piece of paper, weighted down with a bullet. Dante approached. Careful. Elena followed, trembling. The paper held one line, handwritten in dark ink. Bring Elena to the docks by midnight. Dante's jaw tightened. Elena stared at the note, then at him. Her eyes widened with realization. It's me, she whispered. They don't want you. They want me. Dante's voice was cold. They want both, he said. Elena's throat worked. What do they want from me? She whispered. Dante's gaze locked onto hers. They want you to break me, he said quietly. Elena's eyes glistened. I already did, she whispered. Dante flinched. Because she was right. He had been broken the moment he saw Luca's face. Now, the question was whether he would survive the shattering. A sound came from the hallway. Deliberate. Dante spun. Gun raised. A woman stepped into the doorway. Sophia. Her face was bruised. Her lips split. Her eyes wide with terror. Elena, she whispered, voice shaking. Elena surged forward, grabbing her. Where is he? She cried. Where's my son? Sophia shook, tears spilling. They took him, she sobbed. They 2 men. They knew his name. Her gaze flicked to Dante, fear and shock mixing. Elena, what did you do? She whispered. Elena's face crumpled. I went to him, she whispered. I had to. Sophia's eyes widened. To Moretti, she breathed, horrified. Elena, you can't. Dante's voice cut through. Razor sharp. Who took him? He demanded. Sophia flinched. One of them had a scar, she whispered. And the other called him Petrov's dog. Dante's blood turned to ice. *PETROV. Victor Petrov. The Eastern Syndicate that had been circling Dante's territory for years like wolves. Marco stepped into the apartment behind them, face grim. Boss, he said quietly. We got confirmation. Petrov's men are moving on the waterfront tonight. Elena's knees nearly gave out. Please, she whispered, voice breaking completely now. Please don't let him die. Dante stepped closer, and before Alina could pull away, he cupped her face in his hand, firm grounding. Undeniable, Alina froze at the contact. Dante's thumb brushed her cheekbone, feeling the tremor under her skin. His voice was low, steady, intimate. "He won't die," he said. "Not while I breathe." Elena's eyes filled. "You promised before," she whispered. Dante's gaze burned. "This time," he said, "I'm promising him too." Elena's breath hitched, and Dante felt the fragile line between them, hate and love and history, stretched tight, ready to snap. Marco cleared his throat. "Boss," he said, "midnight's in 3 hours." Dante released Alina gently, as if she was something precious and dangerous. He turned to Marco. "Get the men," he said. "We go to the docks." Elena's voice was raw. "I'm coming," she said. Dante's eyes snapped to hers. "No," he said. Alina stepped forward, trembling with fury and fear. "They asked for me," she said. "If I don't go, they'll kill him." Dante's voice was cold. "If you go," he said, "they'll use you to control me." Elena's eyes flashed with desperation. "Then let them," she whispered. "I don't care what happens to me if my son." Dante grabbed her wrist, not cruelly, but firmly. "Stop," he snarled. "Don't you dare offer yourself like that." Elena stared at him, breathing hard. "You don't get to tell me what to sacrifice," she whispered. "You already decided my worth once." Dante's jaw clenched. "And I was wrong," he said. The admission came out like broken glass. Alina froze. Dante's voice was low, rough. "I was wrong," he repeated, "and I will spend the rest of my life paying for it if I have to. But I will not let you die to fix what I broke." Elena's eyes trembled, pain and disbelief warring inside her. Marco shifted, uncomfortable in the presence of something as dangerous as emotion. Dante looked at Alina. "You're coming," he said finally, voice iron, "but you do exactly what I say." Elena's lips parted, ready to argue. Dante's gaze hardened. "Because if you disobey," he said softly, "I won't be able to protect you." Alina swallowed. Then she nodded once. Not because she agreed with him, because in that moment, she had no other choice. The docks at night were a different kind of city, one built of shadows and rusted steel, of water that swallowed secrets. Floodlights cast harsh circles on wet concrete. The air smelled of salt and oil and old violence. Dante's convoy moved without headlights, slipping into place like predators. Men spread out, silent, armed. Marco's voice murmured into his earpiece. Coordinating positions. Alina sat in Dante's car until the last second, her hands pressed together in prayer she didn't believe in anymore. When Dante opened the door for her, the cold hit her like a slap. She stepped out, and Dante's coat settled around her shoulders. He had placed it there without asking, the way he used to, before everything turned to ash. Elena didn't shrug it off. Her eyes scanned the dock, searching for the one thing she couldn't see. Luca. Then, from the shadows near a warehouse, a man stepped into the light. Tall, broad, pale eyes like frozen water. Victor Petrov. He smiled, as if this were a party. "Dante," he called, spreading his arms. "Welcome." Dante stepped forward, gun visible at his side, posture calm but lethal. Alina stayed half a step behind him, exactly where he wanted her, close enough to protect, far enough to move. Petrov's gaze slid to Alina and his smile sharpened. "And you brought the woman," he said. "How obedient of you." Elena stammered. Turned. Petrov moved closer, hands open, theatrical. "Elena," he said, tasting her name. "Or should I call you Riva now?" Elena went cold. Dante's voice was low. "Where is my son?" he said. Petrov laughed softly. "Ah," he said, straight to the point. "I respect that." He gestured behind him. A warehouse door creaked open, and a small figure stepped out, guided by a man's hand. Luca. For a heartbeat, Alina forgot how to breathe. He looked smaller than in the photo, swallowed by the darkness, hair messy, eyes wide. He clutched a toy car in his small fist like it was a talisman. "Elena," he whispered, voice trembling. She surged forward instinctively. Dante's hand caught her arm, holding her back with gentle force. "Wait," he murmured. Elena's eyes burned. "That's my baby," she whispered, voice breaking. Dante's grip tightened, not to restrain her, but to keep her alive. Petrov watched them with amused interest. "Such a beautiful family moment," he said. "It almost makes me sentimental." Dante's voice was ice. "What do you want?" Petrov's smile faded into something colder. "I want," he said softly, "what you have." He gestured at the city beyond the docks, the skyline glowing like a jeweled crown. "Legitimacy," Petrov said. "You're buying your way into the light. I'm tired of the dark." Dante's eyes narrowed. "Then buy your own way," he said. Petrov chuckled. I tried, he said. Banks don't like my name. He leaned in slightly, voice lowering. But they like yours, he said. They trust you. They invite you in. His gaze slid to Elena. And now, he murmured, I have something you trust. Elena's heart pounded. Petrov continued. Voice calm. You will give me 50% of your shipping routes, he said, and you will sponsor my legitimate front through your acquisitions. Dante's eyes narrowed. And if I say no, Petrov smiled softly. Then the boy goes into the water, he said gently, as if discussing whether Elena made a sound. Strangled, Dante's face didn't change. His eyes turned into something ancient and murderous. Elena, Dante murmured without looking at her. Breathe, Elena tried. It hurt. Petrov watched Dante, then smiled wider. Ah, he said softly. You care. Dante's voice was a low growl. You have no idea what you've done. Petrov shrugged. I do, he said. I've found your softest part. Elena's voice rose, shaking. Is a child, she cried. He has nothing to do with you. Petrov's gaze flicked to her. Cold. In our world, he said, children have everything to do with everything. He snapped his fingers. The man holding Luca tightened his grip. Luca's eyes widened, fear spilling over. Mama, he whispered, voice breaking. Elena's knees nearly gave out. Dante's hand steadied her at her waist, firm, anchoring. Petrov's gaze returned to Dante. Agree, he said, and you get the boy. Dante's eyes were dark. And the woman, he said. Petrov smiled. The woman, he repeated, amused. Ah yes, her too. I'm not cruel. Elena stared at Petrov with hatred. Dante's voice was deceptively calm. You know, he said softly, I once believed. A piece of paper that told me my child wasn't mine. Petrov blinked, slightly confused. Dante continued, voice low. I punished the wrong person, he said. I lost 5 years. His gaze sharpened, and in it was something terrifyingly clear. I won't lose another second, he said. Then Dante moved so fast. Elena barely registered it. Dante stepped forward, body shifting, gun drawn in a smooth arc. A shot cracked a night. The man holding Luca dropped, collapsing like his bones had turned to water. Luca screamed. Elena screamed too. Surging forward, Dante's arm wrapped around her, pulling her back hard. Go, Dante snarled to Marco. Men moved instantly, chaos exploding around them. Gunfire, shouts, footsteps pounding wet concrete. Petrov's face twisted, furious. He pulled out his own gun, firing toward Dante. Dante shoved Elena behind a steel container, shielding her with his body. Elena's breath was ragged. Luca, she sobbed. Luca. Dante's voice was low and brutal. Stay here, he ordered. Do not move. Elena's eyes were wild. He needs me, she cried. Dante grabbed her face, forcing her gaze to his. He needs you alive, he snarled. If you die, you abandon him. Do you understand me? Elena froze, tears spilling now, silent and furious. Dante released her and sprinted into the fight like a demon. Elena watched, trembling as the man who had once destroyed her now moved like a force of nature, protecting, killing, reclaiming. She saw Petrov retreat toward the warehouse. She saw Dante chase him. She saw Marco's men sweep the area, covering angles, dragging wounded enemies into shadow, and then she saw Lucas small alone, stumbling toward her, sobbing. Elena surged out from behind the container, ignoring Dante's order, ignoring the danger, ignoring everything but her child. Luke, she cried. He ran into her arms, tiny body shaking with terror. She dropped to her knees, clutching him, burying her face in his hair, inhaling him like oxygen. I'm here, she sobbed. I'm here, baby. I'm here. Luca clung to her, crying. I said, he hiccuped. They said Daddy didn't want me. Elena's heart shattered. She held him tighter. They lied, she whispered fiercely. They lied. A shadow fell over them. Elena looked up. Dante stood there, breathing hard, blood on his knuckles, eyes blazing in the floodlight. He stared at Luca in her arms like he was seeing a miracle and a curse all at once. Luca looked up at him, still sobbing. His eyes locked onto Dante's face. Luca's voice trembled. Are you the bad man? He whispered. Dante froze. Elena's breath caught, because she realized what this moment was. Not just reunion, judgment, a child's instinct. Deciding whether the monster in stories was real. Dante swallowed, throat working, like he had forgotten how to speak. He slowly crouched, bringing himself down to Luca's level, careful not to loom. His voice came out rough, quiet. "No," he said. "I'm not the bad man." Luca's lip trembled. "They said you didn't want me," he whispered again. Dante's eyes burned. "I was wrong," he said, the words barely holding together. "I didn't know about you." Elena's heart pounded. Luca blinked, tears sliding down his cheeks. "You didn't know?" he repeated, confused. Dante's jaw tightened, shame sharp in his gaze. "No," he whispered, "but now I do." He looked at Elena then, and something passed between them, pain, fury, grief, and a fragile thread of truth. Because in that moment Dante Moretti looked like a man who had conquered everything except himself. Sirens wailed in the distance, not police. Not yet. Just the city's restless sound, bleeding into the night. Marco approached quickly, voice tense. "Boss," he said, "Petrov's gone. We lost him in the warehouse maze, but we got his man." Dante's gaze hardened. "He's not gone," he murmured. "He's running." Elena's arms tightened around Luca. Dante looked at Luca again, voice low. "We're going somewhere safe," he said. Luca's eyes widened, fearful. "With Mama?" he whispered. Dante nodded. "With Mama?" he said. Elena's throat tightened, because he said it like it was. A child was returned. It had only changed shape, and somewhere out there, Petrov was breathing, and Salvatore was smiling, and the past was still hungry, as they rushed back to the armored car. Luca clinging to Elena, Dante walking beside them like a shadow with a gun. Elena felt something terrifying settle into her bones. She wasn't sure which would destroy her first, Dante's enemies, or Dante's love. But good love, she had learned, could be the sharpest weapon of all, and this time, it was pointed at her heart.